My sister and I were walking in the park one day when a car pulled up beside us. The man inside rolled down the window and asked my sister if she wanted to pet his puppy. She hesitated for a moment, but she loved animals, so she walked over to the car to see the puppy. As she got closer, I noticed that the man seemed too interested in her. He kept asking her questions and trying to get her to come closer to the car. I called out to her, telling her to come back to me, but she didn't hear me. And then, before I could do anything, the man reached out and grabbed her. He pulled her into the car and drove off, leaving me standing there alone. I ran home as fast as I could and told my parents what had happened. They called the police, but there was no sign of my sister or the man who had taken her. We didn't know what to do. After my sister was taken, my family and I did everything we could to try to find her. We searched the park where she was taken, posting flyers and asking anyone who had seen anything suspicious. We also talked to the police, who launched an immediate investigation. We were all consumed with worry and fear, and it was hard to know what to do next. But we didn't give up. We reached out to our community, spreading the word about my sister's disappearance and asking for help. We talked to everyone we knew, asking if they had seen anything that might help us find her. We organized search parties and combed through the nearby woods and parks. We didn't care about the danger or the discomfort. All we cared about was finding my sister. Our family also used social media to spread the word about my sister's disappearance, posting about her on every platform we could think of. We shared her picture and information about what had happened, hoping that someone might see it and have information that could help. But as time went on, we began to lose hope. We never stopped looking for my sister, but as time passed we knew our chances of finding her would decrease. The police investigation turned up nothing, and we had no leads on what had happened to her. As we searched, our lives were consumed by the pain and heartbreak of my sister's disappearance. We never stopped searching for her, but we also had to try to move on with our lives. Even though my sister was never found, we never forgot about her. We continued to talk about her and remember her, and we never gave up hope that one day she might be found. We also became advocates for missing children, working to raise awareness about the issue and supporting other families who were going through similar experiences. The experience of losing my sister changed our lives forever. We were never the same after she was taken, and we knew that we would always carry the pain and sadness with us. But we had to keep trying, we had to keep searching for answers and hoping that one day we might find her.
As a young child, I experienced a terrifying event that has stayed with me to this day. It was a beautiful summer day, and my mother took me to the mall to do some shopping. As we wandered through the crowded aisles, my attention was drawn to a toy store with bright, colorful displays in the front window. I begged my mother to let me go in and take a look, and she reluctantly agreed, reminding me to stay close and not wander off. As I eagerly perused the toys, my mother became distracted by a phone call, and I took the opportunity to wander off on my own. I quickly became lost in the maze of stores, and my sense of excitement and adventure soon turned to fear and panic. As I wandered aimlessly, trying to find my way back to my mother, I noticed a man walking toward me. He looked friendly enough, with a big smile and kind eyes, but something about him made me uneasy. "Hello, little girl," he said, bending down to my level. "Are you lost?" I nodded, tears welling up in my eyes. "Don't worry, I'll help you find your mother," he said, holding out his hand. I hesitated, unsure of what to do. Something about this man's demeanor made me feel uncomfortable, but I didn't know how to articulate my feelings. "Just take my hand," he urged, smiling again. As I reached out to take his hand, something inside me screamed to run. I started to cry and struggle against him, but he was too strong. He put his hand over my mouth and dragged me towards the exit. Thankfully, a security guard noticed us and intervened. The man was caught and arrested, and I was reunited with my mother, who was beside herself with worry. She hugged me tight and thanked the security guard profusely, tears streaming down her face. It was a terrifying experience that I will never forget. The man seemed friendly at first, but his true intentions were sinister. It was a reminder that not everyone is who they seem and that it's important to be cautious and aware of strangers. After that incident, my mother made sure to always keep an eye on me and to never let me out of her sight in public places. She also talked to me about the importance of being aware of my surroundings and of trusting my instincts if something didn't feel right. Looking back on that day, I am grateful for the security guard who intervened and saved me from a potentially dangerous situation. Without their quick thinking and bravery, the outcome could have been very different. The experience taught me and my family a valuable lesson about the importance of staying aware and prepared, and of trusting in the power of the community to keep us safe. It's a lesson that has stayed with me my entire life, and one that I know will continue to guide me in the years to come.
When I was a young kid, my parents used to let me walk home from school alone. I was around 9 years old when this happened. It was a typical fall day in the small town where I grew up. The trees were ablaze with orange, yellow, and red leaves, and the air was crisp and cool. As I walked home, I noticed a man sitting in a car parked along the side of the road. He had a kind smile and waved to me as I walked by. I smiled back and continued on my way. But then I heard him call out to me. "Hey, little one. Do you need a ride home?" he asked. At first, I was hesitant, because my parents had always told me to be wary of strangers. But he seemed nice, and he said he knew my parents. He even knew my name. "I know your mom and dad. They asked me to give you a ride home," he said, motioning for me to get into the car. I hesitated for a moment, but then I remembered that my parents had mentioned something about a family friend who might pick me up from school. Maybe this was him. I got into the car and we started driving towards my house. At first, we talked about school and sports. He asked me about my favorite subjects and which sports I liked to play. I answered him cautiously, not wanting to give away too much information. But then he started asking me more personal questions. He asked me about my family and where I lived. I gave him vague answers, not wanting to reveal too much. But as we were driving, I noticed that we weren't taking the usual route to my house. "Hey, mister. This isn't the way to my house," I said, starting to feel uneasy. "Oh, don't worry about it. This is just a shortcut," he said with a smile. I didn't think much of it and continued to chat with him. But then I started to notice that we were driving farther and farther away from my house. I asked him when we would get there, and he said it would just be a few more minutes. But those few minutes turned into a half hour, and we were nowhere near my house. I started to panic and asked him to take me home immediately. That's when he pulled over and told me to get out of the car. We were in a remote area, and I had no idea where I was. I got out of the car and started to walk away, but he grabbed my arm and pulled me back towards him. "Come on, I want to show you something," he said, his grip tightening on my arm. I was scared. I started screaming and fighting back, trying to break free from his grasp. But he was too strong. Suddenly, a car pulled up, and a woman got out. She asked if I was okay and told the man to let me go. The man panicked and drove away. The woman was my guardian angel. She asked me what had happened, and I told her everything. She comforted me and told me that everything was going to be okay. She took me to a nearby store and called the police. They arrived within minutes, and I told them what had happened. The police searched the area and found the man's car abandoned a few blocks away. They eventually caught the man, who was a convicted sex offender who had been released from prison just a few months earlier. In the aftermath of the incident, my parents were understandably shaken. They blamed themselves for letting me walk home alone, and they were filled with guilt and fear. But they also took action. They talked to me about stranger danger and made sure that I knew how to protect myself. They arranged for someone to pick me up from school every day, and they never let me out of their sight again. It's been many years since that day, but it still gives me chills. Sometimes I think about the way the leaves crunched under my feet as I walked home from school, and the way the sun was shining brightly in the sky. I think about the way my heart raced as I got into that car, and the way my fear turned to terror as we drove farther and farther away from my house. But most of all, I think about the woman who saved my life. I don't know who she was or where she came from, but I will be forever grateful to her for being my guardian angel on that fateful day.
It was a bright and sunny day, and the amusement park was bustling with people. My dad had taken me there to have some fun and bond with me. We went on some rides and played some games, and then my dad and I decided to take a break and grab some food from a nearby stand. I was fixated on the colorful stuffed animals on display at the game booth nearby, and my dad agreed to let me take a closer look while he ordered our food. I wandered over to the booth, marveling at the array of plush toys on display. I was so engrossed in examining each one that I didn't notice a man approach me until he was right beside me. "Hi there," he said, his voice smooth and friendly. "Are you having a good time at the park?" I smiled and nodded, still fixated on the stuffed animals. The man continued to make small talk, asking me my name and how old I was. I didn't think anything of it and answered him politely. But then he asked me if I wanted to come see something cool he had in his car, and I started to feel uneasy. I knew I wasn't supposed to talk to strangers or go anywhere with them, and something about his request felt off. Before I could respond, the man reached out and grabbed my arm, pulling me towards him. I started to cry and tried to pull away, but he was strong and held on tight. My dad had just finished ordering our food and turned around to see the man grabbing me. He shouted and ran over, pulling me away from the man and holding me close. The man tried to protest, saying that he was just trying to show me something and that he wasn't going to hurt me. But my dad wasn't having it, and he called over a nearby security guard for help. The man was arrested and taken away, but the memory of that experience stayed with me for years. I couldn't shake the feeling of fear and unease that had come over me when the man had grabbed me, and I struggled to trust strangers or feel safe in unfamiliar situations. My dad and I talked about the incident afterward, and he explained to me the importance of staying aware and alert in public places, especially around strangers. He reiterated that I should never go anywhere with someone I didn't know, no matter how friendly or harmless they seemed. As the years went on, I grew more comfortable and confident in public places, but the memory of that incident stayed with me. It served as a reminder of the importance of staying vigilant and aware, and of trusting my instincts when it came to my safety. Looking back on that day, I am grateful that my dad was there to protect me and that we were able to get help quickly. It's a reminder of the importance of staying alert and aware in public places, and of the power of speaking up and seeking help when you need it. Even as an adult, that memory remains vivid and visceral, a reminder of the dangers that can lurk in the world and the importance of staying vigilant and aware at all times.